Alright, in this video we're actually going to cover Southern American Classic pulled pork. The cut we're using today is a Boston butt roast. And what we're going to do here, actually, it's a pretty simple recipe. But we're basically going to dry brine it overnight with injection. And then we're going to start this low and slow tomorrow morning with intent to serve tomorrow night for dinner. So basically all the things that you'll need, at least for the brining process, is basically whatever rib rub you choose. Today we're using Grill Mates pork rub, but like I said, you can use your own blends. Some people try to. The apple juice, we're going to be using this not only during the smoking process to keep it moist, but also as part of the injection as well. You're going to want a bottle of your favorite barbecue sauce. My wife is from South Carolina, so we prefer Melvin's, which is kind of a mustard-based sauce. But we're going to use a little bit of that in the injection as well as on the rubbing. And then olive oil and vegetable spread. It's kind of my go-to to really get kind of a encased meat skin. I don't know what else you'd call it. That basically will hold in all those flavors as you low and slow it. So we're going to use that during the rubbing process. Also in the injection as well. And then, just a needle to inject on it. So no exact science to this. I'm going to kind of guesstimate portions, but the injection is going to be largely apple juice based. I'd say probably 3 parts apple juice, maybe 1 part olive oil, and then maybe like a 1/4 part vegetable spread and barbecue sauce, just because we don't want it to be too thick that we can't inject it. So I'm going to combine those ingredients and then microwave the injection, and then I'll show you video on kind of what parts of the Boston butt that I inject in and kind of what the process is going to be for brining. Alright, so that's kind of what it looks like when it's all mixed. Kind of gross, right? But basically what you're looking at here is some floating vegetable spread and some floating mustard-based barbecue sauce in there, a layer of olive oil on the top, and apple juice. So the way you're going to mix this, because they're all different consistencies, is you're basically going to microwave it. Don't let it splatter or boil over. I usually go with about 35 to 40 seconds, but just kind of keep your eye on it. And then get a spoon and go ahead and stir it until it becomes kind of one consistent liquidy mix. I promise it looks gross, but it is good. So we're going to close the microwave, and we're actually going to put this guy in for about, let's say 45 seconds to start. It should be fine. Okay, so that's kind of what it's going to look like when it's all mixed. It's kind of yellowish. The butter will rise to the top, or I should say vegetable spread, but at least it's kind of consistent enough where you can get it through an injector and get it in there. So what we're actually going to do, and I'm going to reach for my needle here, is you're basically going to use a standard injection needle, nothing major. This is actually one I've used that came with a Tony Cacheret's kit. But you're going to fill this up, full load, and you're basically going to pick a spot to inject it in. Now what you're going to do is you're going to start at an angle. You never want to go straight in. So you start an angle kind of like that, and then use that same hole, kind of pull a little bit out, and then redirect it. You want to do 3 different directions at each injection point. Now on a Boston butt, typically what I do is I go 6 and 6. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on this side. Then I'll flip it over to the fat back side and I'll repeat the same process. So now I will say it's going to get overstuffed. Parts of it are going to balloon up. Some of it's going to spray out. That's normal. The key is just to try to use all of your injection in there. You really can't use too much injection. The majority of it will cook out of the holes that you originally put it in there for, but it really helps to kind of marinate it overnight if you just kind of oversaturate it. So I need 2 hands to do this, so I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll check back in when I'm ready to do the dry rub. But just to repeat, for each injection point, this is important, I can't stress it enough, you want to do 3 different directions. So you want to do kind of like 1, 2, and then maybe 3, all in the same injection point. So we'll check back in after I do that. Okay, so now that we've injected this, like I said, we did a 6 and 6. I had some extra left over, so I added some in the sides. Really no science to that. It's going to be overflowing, which is fine. I mean, you can see that some stuff is collected here on the bottom. So now we're going to do our dry brine before we leave this in the fridge overnight. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to start off with some parquet vegetable spread. So we're just going to kind of put a liberal amount on the fat back side. so. Then we're going to come in, we're going to add some olive oil. And the olive oil is really the secret to getting like a real crisp outer edge. Locks in a lot of that moisture. Then you're going to use your favorite barbecue sauce. Like I said, we use mustard-based Melvin's from Charleston, South Carolina. So you don't want to go overboard on this because really the sauce is going to be added on the end, but this is just kind of introduce the flavor early into the meat. And then we're going to add, so we're going to rub that in first, okay? And kind of mix all those flavors together. No science to it. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to drip off the edges, but really what we're trying to do is just get a base of all those strong flavors. Some may call it the flavor profile. And then what we're going to do is we're going to introduce the dry rub. You'll notice I had pork rub from McCormick's earlier. I realized I had an open bottle of Melvin's dry rub, so we're going to go Melvin sauce and Melvin dry rub on this. So basically, now that we have a firm base right here, you're just going to put a very liberal amount of seasoning. And you're not going to rub it in per se, you're going to kind of pat it down, make sure it settles. This is really, since it's such a salty based rub, and most rubs are, what you're going to get here is an outer crust that's really going to lock in all that moisture. It's going to absorb into it, it's going to give it a nice thick skin when you cook it. So what we're going to do is, you just saw me do that. I'm actually going to flip this over now, lay it on the fat back, and repeat the process on the top and sides. And then we'll check back in when we're ready to put it back in the refrigerator overnight. All right, so that's what perfection looks like in regard to prepping your pulled pork. So you'll see that we did the 6 and 6 injection on both sides. Then we basically rubbed the barbecue sauce, olive oil, vegetable spread, and dry rub on all angles. We have complete coverage. You can see down here on the edges even. Just got a complete coating around it. It's sitting fat back side down. You could do it either way, but most people don't eat the actual fat. In fact, most people use it to render the fat juices into the meat and then pull it out. So I figured it'd be more worth our investment making sure that we protected the moisture on the non-fat back side. So that's why our fat back side is kind of sitting in the leftover juices that are dripping down. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to take some aluminum foil. We're going to cover this guy up, and then we're going to let him sit. Let's see, it's about 4:30 in the afternoon right now. He's going to sit until about 8 a.m. Just kind of doing that dry brine overnight. So it should be delicious, and we will check back in with you tomorrow. All right, so our pork has been dry brining overnight in the refrigerator. We recently pulled it out. As far as egg setup, I haven't talked about it yet, but we just used really a whole load of charcoal because we're low on slowing this. I brought the temperature up just over 400, so really just to get a firm base for the fire, and then we'll bring that down to around 220 later. So what we're going to do is we're using apple wood chips right now. These have been soaking for at least 30 minutes. That's kind of just so they smoke a little bit slower. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up, and you'll see I have a strong fire going right there. And we're going to add in the wood chips. Just kind of sprinkle throughout. You want to give it a good stir so you don't kill the fire, and so that you work this into the whole thing. And this will help bring back that temperature pretty considerably. So now we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to get our plate setter. We're going to sit that directly on top of the fire ring. Okay. From there, we're going to use our drip pan, and this is actually where the pork has been dry brining overnight. We're going to bring that back in, put it on the plate setter, and fill it up with apple juice. This will kind of keep that apple flavor steaming into the meat as it goes slow. And you'll see I actually did not know that was there. Good thing I found that now. So then we'll pour that in. And that's probably more than enough. You can always add more later. Okay. Then what we're going to do here, we're going to add our grill grate directly on top of our plate setter, like so. And then we're going to get our V-rack with our shoulder, put it directly on top like so. So what we're going to do is we're going to close this off, and we're going to let it go probably about 300, 350 for about 20 minutes, just to kind of give it a firm start on the outside to lock in a lot of that moisture, and then we'll drop that temperature back down and let it go low and slow for about anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. All right, so it's been about 5 hours. It's been rocking here at about 220. So we're gonna check on it real quick. You'll see super smoky at the top, lots of juices going on. The apple juice is boiling in the bottom underneath it. So we're gonna add a little bit more because some has evaporated and we want to make sure it doesn't get dry. And then basically what we're gonna do here is probably got about 2.5, 3 hours left on it. So what we're gonna do here is we're going to actually... All right, so we're at about 8 hours of direct heat, well, indirect heat actually, sitting at about 225, in between 225 245. So you'll see we've had our thermometer in. We're close to 180 degrees, which is the ideal pulling temperature. So we're actually going to pull this off shortly, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pull the meat, and we're actually going to transfer the meat over to a Dutch oven that we're going to put back on the grill to give it some additional smoke and to let it simmer within the barbecue. That's an optional step, but that's kind of the route we're going to take. So you'll see our apple juice that we poured in there earlier is actually still boiling up. So this should be a very tender piece of meat. You can actually see all of the juices still kind of collecting at the top there. So it's gonna be really good. The fat back obviously is pretty severely barked at the top. Obviously the fat we're gonna be pulling off, but cooking with the fat back on top is really gonna help out, like as far as flavor goes. The fact that all that fat's been rendering down into the meat, letting gravity kind of do the work on that, it should be really super juicy and moist. So we're going to pull this off shortly. We're going to pull it, and then we're going to put it back on the grill, probably for about another 30-45 minutes, just to get the barbecue sauce kind of simmered on it and get it boiling again. So what we're going to do now is we just pulled the meat off, like we said earlier. It cooked for about 8 hours at about 220 degrees. So you'll see there's a strong bark right here. The fat back is up on top. We're going to actually peel most of the fat out, disregard it. And we're going to use these bear claws, which are huge as far as the shredding process goes. If you don't have them, buy yourself a pair. We're going to put them inside of this Dutch oven right here. And we're going to put it with the sauce. This is what's really going to set it over the top, is we're going to put all that shredded meat inside there with some of the barbecue sauce. It can be any barbecue sauce that you choose. We're going to do South Carolina style because that's where we're kind of from. And then we're going to kind of let it simmer until it's boiling with some additional apple wood chips for, I don't know, about 35-40 minutes. And then we'll be ready to serve it. So as we dig into this, we just unveiled the fat back. We got that off there. You'll see there's a lot of shredded pork right here. The next portion that I talked about is kind of optional. You could eat this and serve it unsauced at this point on. So you'll see that this it's pulling straight off right quick. You see the smoke ring right there, that red right there. Really thick smoke ring, very good, super moist. So you can actually eat it straight. Oh yeah? Super good. It's kind of an optional stage, but I promise you this really will set it over the top. What we're gonna do here is, now that we have it, you can see right here we have just, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's just kind of a good pulled consistency. You can always shred it a little bit more after the next phase, but what we're gonna do here is we're actually gonna pour really the barbecue sauce of your choice. We use Melvin's from South Carolina. It's a mustard-based sauce, but just introduce a good bit of it. You really can't go overboard with this. And really what we're gonna do here is we're gonna kind of let it kind of slow cook or boil for another half hour to an hour, really anywhere in between. You just wanna heat up the sauce, but introduce a little bit more wood chips. Once again, we're using apple. So you're just gonna kind of add a healthy amount, mix it in, work it all into the meat that you've just shredded, and then we're gonna add those apple wood chips just to get another level of smoke in there. So we're gonna mix this up, put it back on the grill, and we'll check back in when it's ready to go. All right, so now that we got this all prepped, you'll see that we still have the grill set up the same way. We just removed the V-rack with the meat on it. So what we're gonna do here is we're actually gonna remove the top grate. we're going to leave the apple juice that we had before still on, but we're going to introduce some more wood chips here just to add some more smoke. So we're going to work that in underneath the plate setter. And it's not an exact science, we're just trying to get a little bit more smoke on this as we finish it off. I'm going to give it a good stir real quick with our coal stirrer tool. And now that that's in there, we're going to put this back on. And then what we're going to do as the final step is we're going to put our Dutch oven full of our fully cooked meat with the sauce. And we're going to leave this on here for about another 35-40 minutes and let this heat up, and that'll really put it over the top and add some extra smoked flavor. Alright, so 45 minutes later, we're going to check on this now, and you'll see that our meat here has been simmering in its barbecue sauce for about 45 minutes with the apple chips. It smells super smoky, super sweet. Those barbecue sauce and the apple wood chip smoke have kind of melded together, and it's just really, I mean, it's just kind of almost this sloppy joe type of barbecue texture here. It looks super good, super moist. So we're going to pull this off in a second here. We're going to serve our dinner, we're going to serve our sandwiches, and we'll be all squared away. Alright, so tonight with the pulled pork, we're going to have some sweet potato fries here. So we just lightly dusted these with some of the pork rub seasoning. So we're going to go ahead and add some of that to our plate. Get a simple serving here. And then now that we got this serving done here, we're going to get our pulled pork, and you could add more barbecue sauce if you wanted to. Obviously, if you didn't do this step, you would need to add more, but because we boiled it in barbecue sauce, I think we're pretty set here as far as flavors go. So that's what your perfect plate's going to look like. We have an onion roll, and I'm going to take a first bite real quick. Absolutely ridiculous, super moist, lots of apple flavor bursting through, and the fact that we cooked it in the barbecue sauce really sets it over the top. Super smoky, excellent. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope it all works out for y'all the same way it did for us.